We wish to welcome you to the council chambers of the mayor and city council here in Laurel. This is our 48th year of our memorial service. My name is Bob DiPietro, and I have the pleasure for 47 of the last 48 years of being your master of ceremonies. I would mention, and for those of you who are home, obviously do not have the program book, but on the very first page at the very bottom is a picture of Warren Litchfield, who back in 1973, along with citizens who served as the caretakers of Ivy Hill and brought the cemetery directly across the street from City Hall back to life, began. Halbert was a very, very active member of the Laurel Volunteer Fire Department, and a memorial was structured over the years, and this began as both a tribute to military and, quite frankly, from what we've experienced in the many years, and particularly since 9/11, it is an honor that we extend to our first responder families. For me personally, for 47 years, the week before this event was an annual phone call that came from Halbert to tell me what time to be here, what I was expected to do. And the irony of this is I grew up across the street from Halbert, and it was not unusual to sometimes walk up the street with him. He will be sorely missed in the years ahead as this great tradition continues. And later, we are going to hear a great tribute to another member of the volunteer fire department who had tremendous influence, a former mayor, a member of the fire department, a member of the rescue squad, and titles that go beyond reason for any one human being. And that's former Mayor Joe Robinson, whose family is here with us today. And later, you'll probably meet them, at least by name, in the sense of a tribute dedicated to Joe today. I would like to say that it's always been necessary for me to apologize whenever I publicly speak if I leave something out, put the wrong thing in, offend you in some way, shape, or form. In the old days, I would say that I really don't care because I'm not running for public office. However, at the age of 50, I think Mark Twain says it great because we start missing things when we get a little bit older. But it was Twain who brought us that age is an issue. You know, it is an issue of mind over matter. So if you don't mind, it don't matter. Let me introduce our chaplain of the fire department, a long friend who we are so delighted to have here today for many reasons. It's an honor to introduce the chaplain, Jimmy Collins.
Good morning. First of all, I want to give thanks to everyone that's here with the difficult times that we've had and still having. I want to give thanks to the Laurel Volunteer Fire Department, Laurel Rescue Squad, Laurel Police Department, the American Legion, and the City of Laurel for fighting this, dealing with this COVID. It's put a restraint on all of us. It affected every one of us, and in some cases took away family and friends. Today, we're going to pay tribute to members who are no longer here, who sacrificed their time to provide service for our citizens. You know, I looked on Facebook yesterday, and even one of my family members was thanking me and a few other people for our service in the military. I'd explained to them that's Veterans Day. This is Memorial Day. This is for those members who are no longer here. And last, before we get started, I do want to thank Joanne Robinson, Joe's wife, who, if you don't know, she's also very active in every aspect of the fire department. She has been there since, I ain't gonna give your age away, numerous years, and I just want to say thank you for that. Let us pray. Almighty God, before we stand in the living and the dead, we, your children, whose moral life is but a hand's breadth, give thanks to you. For all those who you have blessed our pilgrimage with lives that empowered us, whose influence is a healing grace, we lift up thankful hearts. For the dear friends and family members whose faces we no longer see, but who live with us forever. For the teachers and companions of our childhood and youth, and for the members of the household of faith who worship you now in heaven. For those who sacrifice themselves, our brothers and sisters who have given their lives for the sake of others, that we may hold them in continual remembrance and ever think of them as with you in a city whose gates are not shut by day and where there is no night. That we may be dedicated to the working of the world in labor, his reward, fear is dispelled, and a nation made one. O Lord, save your people and bless your heritage. Day by day we magnify you and worship your name forever and ever. Amen.
Thank you, Jim. Before I introduce our next agenda item, let me say that after we have the presentation of colors, normally we'd be outside, we would have the raising of the flag. There is no raising of the flag inside of a building. So we will go from the presentation of the colors, and then we will go straight to our national anthem. So I would ask you to please rise on the entrance, and I would ask the leader of our honor guard from both the fire department and the police department here in Laurel, please post your colors. Ladies and gentlemen, we will now have the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. Before I go any further, let me give a thank you and ask you to give a round of applause to Colonel Robert Kiker, a retired member of the Prince George County Sheriff's Department, who's been with us many, many years. Thank you, Colonel. Appreciate it. As I mentioned very briefly, the name of Joe Robinson, a former mayor and member of both the squad and the fire department. Today, we're going to have a remembrance of Joe as part of this ceremony. It was certainly a remembrance that he well deserves, and it's a pleasure for me to introduce Marlene Collins, the wife of the Volunteer Fire Department's chaplain, a life member of the Laurel Volunteer Fire Department, and the treasurer of the Ladies Auxiliary. Marlene.
Good morning, everyone. Just to give credit, Vic Whipple actually wrote this tribute to Joe a few weeks ago and is letting me read it today. So, Fire Chief Joseph R. Robinson died on November 10th, 2020, at the age of 87. He lived a long and distinguished career across those years. He retired from the United States Postal Service in 1988 with over 36 years of service. Joe served our nation in the U.S. Army during the Korean War. He has been active in this community all of his life. He served as councilman and mayor with the City of Laurel. He served as president of the Greater Laurel Beltsville chapter of the American Red Cross for 3 years and served on the Laurel Museum's board of directors. His fire service career spans more than 60 years. He has served in many capacities at the federal, state, county, and local levels, contributing his wisdom, guidance, and leadership wherever he served. At the federal level, Joe is currently serving on the Federal Interagency Committee on EMS for FEMA. In 1976, Joe participated in an organizational meeting of the National Fire Council that seeks to guide federal fire legislation, and served for many years as MFSA's alternate representative at their meetings. Joe's face was well known by federal legislators at the annual National Fire Caucus dinners. At the state level, Joe was appointed by the governor to a fire commission to determine the future role and funding for what is now known as the Maryland Fire and Rescue Institute that trains firefighters and emergency medical service personnel. In 1975, the Chancellor of the University of Maryland appointed Joe as a charter member of the President's Board of Advisors to MIFRE. He continued serving as a member of the board until 1992. In 1961, Joe became active in the Maryland State Firemen's Association, serving on and chairing many committees of the MSFA. He served on the MSFA Executive Committee for 10 years and serving as its chairman in 1979 and 1984. He was elected president of the MSFA in 1989, and he was inducted into the MSFA Hall of Fame in 1980 and recognized for his service with the Gladhill Thompson Award in 1978 and the Gates Service Award in 2003. For more than 50 years, Joe has served in various capacities in the Maryland Fire Chiefs Association, serving as their president in 1974 to 75. At the county level, Joe served on the Prince George's County Fire Commission from its inception in 1970 until he retired in 2003. He served 19 years as vice chairman and 4 years as its chairman. Joe had been extensively involved with the Prince George's County Volunteer Fire and Rescue Association, serving on committees and leading them. He served on the association's board of directors and as president in 1968 to 1969. He was inducted in the Prince George's County Hall of Fame in 1981. At the local level, Joe began his fire service career as firefighter with the Maryland State Forestry Department at the age of 14. He applied for membership in the Laurel Volunteer Fire Department in September 1951, and he served in all operational offices of the Laurel Volunteer Fire Department, and for the last 30-plus years, he served on its board of trustees. Joe was a charter member and life member of the Laurel Volunteer Rescue Squad. He served as one of its first chairman of the board of directors and was instrumental in obtaining the lane and coordinating the construction of the Laurel Rescue Squad station. Joe had an unselfish and loyal devotion to God, family, city, county, state, nation, and to the fire rescue and emergency medical services. His family always came first. His wife, Joanne, of 58 years, 2 daughters, Betty Ann and Mitzi, sons-in-law, 6 grandchildren, and 5 great-grandchildren. His life was guided by his trust in God. He was a member of the St. Mary of the Mills Roman Catholic Church. He was quite the person, quite the man, quite the man.
Thank you, Marlene. And Joanne, to the girls and your family, your attendance is very important here today. And we are honored to have you sit with us because we know the years of dedication that many times he was out on the road 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. For me personally, Joe got me in trouble at a very early age. I'll just mention that because Joanne and Joe loved to travel. And when I ran for mayor in the late 70s, Joe made me promise to call him because they were not going to be in town. And a few weeks later, I didn't think much about it. My father had a long conversation about my phone call to Hawaii on that night, which apparently appealed on the current household bill. So the next, I have the pleasure of introducing some guests in the room, and I think these are people that usually are in attendance of this, even when they're not in a position. But let me start with the president of the Laurel City Council, Valerie Nickel. Valerie, welcome. A councilman off camera, we celebrated his birthday today, Mr. Carl DeWalt. And from past councils, and I'll start with a very old friend of mine who served back in the late 70s and early 80s, Councilman Jim Cross. I would also like to introduce former Councilman Rick Wilson. And last but not least, my old friend, the former councilman and president of the council, president of the Maryland Municipal League, Prince George County Chapter, and several other titles, the Honorable Fred Smalls. The next gentleman really needs no introductions in the confines of this building or on the streets of Laurel, or even in the streets that aren't in the incorporated city, from here to Annapolis and to Washington, D.C. He is an old and treasured friend of mine. I watched him come onto the council in the late 80s, and still here we are in 2021, and we've had him as our mayor for many years. Craig has always been a guy that looked to the future without forgetting the past, which for most elected officials is a thing that should be practiced on a daily basis. But it gives me great pleasure to introduce to you the Honorable Mayor of the City of Laurel, the Honorable Craig A. Moe.
Thanks, Bob. Before I read my prepared remarks, I do want to acknowledge Jim Collins, our chaplain. Jim's had a fight. We all know what he's been through. I think without everyone's prayers and their thoughts, Jim probably wouldn't have been able to get through this. But Jimmy, we want to acknowledge you here today. I want to thank you for your friendship and your support, and we continue to pray for you and your family. So thank you very much for what you're doing. Good morning. On behalf of the Mayor and City Council, I bring you greetings and we welcome you to the Laurel Municipal Center. Although the weather is not cooperating with us this morning, it's nice to be back together again at our annual Joint Memorial Day service. These past 16 months have not been easy for any of us dealing with COVID-19, but let me take this opportunity to thank the Laurel community for all of their support, their understanding, and working with us to rid our community of this terrible disease. I encourage each of you to get vaccinated if you've not been vaccinated, and to keep your guard up as we move through the months to come. Again, we come together to remember those that have given to their country and to their community in service to others, and to remember those who have given the ultimate sacrifice to protect our freedoms and our way of life. Memorial Day is observed on the last Monday of May. It was formerly known as Decoration Day, and honors all men and women who have given their lives in military service to our nation. Many people visit cemeteries, sites. Others will attend Memorial Day services. They'll have outdoor cookouts, except maybe today, and they'll relax at their neighborhood swimming pools on Memorial Day, which is traditionally seen as the start of our summer season. But on this Memorial Day, we gather to represent our organizations, to honor the men and women in uniform, and to those who have given their lives in service to our nation. And we recognize Laurel's hometown heroes, from the Laurel Volunteer Fire Department, the Laurel Volunteer Rescue Squad, the Laurel Police Department, the Laurel Police Department, and our veterans of the American Legion Post 60. As we remember those in uniform serving in all branches of our military and those on different assignments and locations around the world, we do pray for their safe return home to their families. To Laurel's hometown heroes who protect us 24/7, 365 days a year, our first responders, and to those on the front lines of this public health emergency, thank you for your service, your commitment, and the dedication to the community of Laurel. Let me acknowledge and say thank you to all of our doctors, our nurses, our medical support staff who continue to work on the front lines of this public health emergency. And we are praying for them, and we hope that they continue to keep us all safe. To all of you here and our first responders, please stay safe and keep up the great work you're doing in our community. On behalf of the City of Laurel, I want to acknowledge the loss of a true friend, a dedicated volunteer, a veteran, a firefighter, an EMS provider, and an outstanding public servant to the state of Maryland, the county, and to the Laurel community, former Mayor Joseph R. Robinson, who passed away since our last joint Memorial Day service. Joe will be and is missed deeply, and we want to thank his family for sharing Joe with us. And I want to say to the family again, I traveled a lot of miles with Joe and heard a lot of the family stories. So as Bob has said and Marlene, Joe was all over this state, and not just the city and not just the county, but all over the state, and a well-respected individual. May Joe rest in peace. Let me finish my remarks by a poem I read last year, which I called Remembering. The author is unknown, but I believe it's a fitting way to remember all of those we have lost but live on with us. The ones we love remain with us, for love itself lives on, and cherished memories do not fade because a loved one's gone. The ones we love can never be more than a thought apart, and as long as there's memory, they'll live on in our hearts. Thank you all very much for attending today. And again, thank you to American Legion Post 60 and all of our first responders for what you do day in and day out. Please have a safe and enjoyable holiday. Thank you.
Today is the day that we honor the military and our first responders, and it gives me great pleasure to welcome a new member to the family on the Memorial Day service, our Chief of Police here in Laurel. And he came from us from Montgomery County. He sits down to lead one of the finest police departments in the state of Maryland, if not the finest, and that comes with a complete bias, I might add. But it gives me a pleasure to introduce Chief Russell Hamill. Chief.
Thank you, Mr. DePietro. If we could arrange a schedule next year that I don't have to go behind the mayor, I would greatly appreciate that. I want to thank everyone for this opportunity to say something here this morning, and especially thank our service members that are present in the crowd. And danger here is I'll miss somebody, but I do see people that were in the Navy and Airborne in the Army and the Marine Corps, thank you for your service. And without you, I probably wouldn't be standing here today. So today, we faithfully memorialize our fallen heroes. It's a day we should also give thanks for, in my opinion. We must give thanks for the men and women resting beneath these glorious flags here in Laurel, across the street, and across the world. In Arlington and in France and Belgium, in Vietnam and the Pacific Islands, as well as countless other places where our heroes lie in peace after having given their last full measure of devotion to stand up for and to protect our blessed freedoms that we hold so dear. The men and women of this country, some born and raised in families that have been here for many years, and others newly here, like a friend of mine who wasn't even here a year and found himself in the Army serving our country. All defending this cherished idea of freedom with their last ounce of life, helping to preserve the noble ideas of freedom, democracy, and the ability to make your own way in life, regardless of who your parents are, regardless of the success or failures of your ancestors, being able to make it on your own in your own way. These patriots stood for something greater than themselves and gave their gift of life so that others may live under the blanket and comfort of freedom we enjoy. Today, I'm reminded of something my father taught me to understand when I was very young, and as I have also tried to teach my children to similarly understand. So I ask you to please bear with me while I read a short piece that I paraphrase from Henry's speech at Agincourt, as written by Shakespeare. However, let me set the stage. And those of you that have seen the HBO series Band of Brothers, you'll be familiar with some of this, as Lieutenant Carwood Lipton notes in that series of why those brave men in the 101st did what they did to save us and others across the world. See, Henry's speech at Agincourt, his troops were completely surrounded and outnumbered by some counts 10-1. Defeat seemed certain, yet they decided to stand together, to stand for their country, and to fight, facing near certain death. Henry captured the essence of why the brave men and women that we honor today here, why they gave so selflessly for us and each other. As Henry said, this day is called the Feast of Crispian. He that outlives this day and comes safe home will stand a tiptoe when this day is named, and rouse him at the name of Crispian. He that shall live this day and see old age will yearly on the vigil feast of his neighbors and say, tomorrow is St. Crispian. Then he will strip his sleeve and show his scars and say, these wounds I had on Crispian's day. This story shall the good man teach his son, and Crispian shall ne'er go by from this day to the ending of the world. But we in it shall be remembered. We few, we happy few, we band of brothers. For he today that sheds his blood with me shall be my brother. Thank God for these brave and selfless service members who gave their blood for all of us, as well as for their brothers and sisters at arms. May Almighty God give them eternal peace and bless them and their families. We need to be eternally grateful. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. The next group that we honor on this day, and again, I know at home you do not have the ability to have this great program. There are pages and pages of members of each of these organizations who have passed and who we are now remembering on this day. So let me introduce the chief and another old friend of the Laurel Volunteer Fire Department, Chief Jim Codespoke.
Morning. On behalf of the entire membership of the Laurel Volunteer Fire Department, I want to welcome you to today's service and thank you for attending and watching on the video. I'm honored to be speaking to you today on the occasion of the 48th anniversary of the Memorial Day service here in the City of Laurel. I'm proud to be here to honor our service members and to remember their achievements, their courage, and their dedication, and to say thank you for their sacrifices. The service members we honor today came from all walks of life, but they shared several fundamental qualities. They possess courage, determination, selflessness, dedication to duty, and integrity. All of these qualities needed to serve a cause larger than life itself. Many of them didn't ask to leave their homes to fight on distant battlefields. Many didn't even volunteer. They didn't go to war because they loved fighting. They were called to be a part of something bigger than themselves. They were ordinary people who responded in extraordinary ways in extreme times. They rose to the nation's call because they wanted to protect a nation which has given them and us so much. Millions of Americans have fought and died on battlefields here and abroad to defend our freedoms and our way of life. Today, our troops continue to make the ultimate sacrifices, and even as we lose troops, more Americans step forward to say, "I'm ready to serve." They follow in the footsteps of generations of fine Americans. We have awarded medals to many soldiers and added their names to monuments and named buildings after them to honor them for their bravery, but nothing can ever replace the void left behind by our fallen service members, and no number of medals or ribbons can comfort their families. For those service members and veterans here today with us, thank you for your service and for your call to duty. For those attending today and who have lost family members and loved ones, we keep you and them in our prayers. This weekend, people throughout the country will gather together to remember and to honor and pay gratitude to those who served our country. Our gathering is just one small spark in the flame of pride that burns across the nation today and every day. It's not a lot, but it's one small way we can honor those who have made the ultimate sacrifice so that we can live in freedom. Before I leave you, I'd like to express my sympathy on the recent passing of several members of our public safety organization. To the Robinsons, I've known Joe for a long time. We've rode fire trucks together. And I always remember him coming down the 901 to drive us on the ladder truck. We definitely miss him. Their passing of all of our members, past members, leaves us with a void that will never be filled, but their memory and spirit will remain with us to the end of time. Again, thank you for attending today's ceremony. God bless you and your families, and God bless the troops, our first responders, and God bless America. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Next organization, and I might add, all these organizations are a tremendous asset to not only the City of Laurel, but the entire Laurel area, including those post office addresses that extend into Howard and Anne Arundel in Montgomery County. It's unbelievable the amount of dedication and the things they do behind the scenes that you will never know about. And the next person to speak is representing such an organization. We were talking before the program started. This is her 20th year of coming here to speak on behalf of the rescue squad. And the day she doesn't come is the day I will actually worry about it, because not having Michelle involved and being part of this program will be a tremendous loss to this program. But it's a pleasure to introduce Michelle Arsenal.
Thank you, Bobby Joe. Good morning. Those of you who have listened to me for 20 years know that Craig only lets me talk for a minute, so I prepare my speech, and I try to choose something to talk about. So this morning, I'd like to talk about the greatest generation. Some of you may have heard the term, some of you may not have. I know you've heard of baby boomers, probably even millennials, Generation X, Zoomers. But when was the greatest generation? Well, generally defined, as those between 1901 and 1927. They were raised in the Great Depression, participated in World War II, and birthed the baby boomers. So that's the when. How about the what? Who, where, and why today? Well, oddly enough, those alive in 1918 to 1920 experienced a deadly flu pandemic. They also experienced a technology boom of their era with radio, telephone, and auto. And there was money until there wasn't. Then there was economic and social turmoil, a Great Depression, and war. Over 16 million Americans served in World War II. And then there were those at home with the can-do attitude who supported, created, and produced, kept things running, and developed what was needed for the fight. Because it was needed, and it was the right thing to do. They were all in this together as a nation. The generation who survived the Great Depression developed the ability to make do from nothing, to solve problems, to make it through. Now the what? Strength, power, and wealth. The U.S. military grew in all ways during the Second World War, and the U.S. became a formidable power. The grit, backbone, and work ethic were not taken lightly, but were not touted either. It was simply the right thing to do, just a matter of course to survive. Peace and prosperity were the goal, the honor was secondary, and the pride was in the win for the nation. So what traits do we attribute to this greatest generation? Responsibility, integrity, humility, work ethic, financial prudence, and commitment to the greater good. On to the where. Well, rural America morphed after the war and grew into an urban and suburban culture, and the wealth and leisure returned, and the creativity and development continued. The communities grew, and a lot of babies were born. So we've arrived at the why. Why today? Because some of those of the greatest generation who still live today are in their 90s, and more are our centenarians. The Department of Veteran Affairs in 2016 estimated 620,000 still living of the 16 million who served in that Second World War. However, about 372 greatest generation veterans are lost every day just related to advanced age. But today is about remembering those who lived and fought and sacrificed to get us here. So grab a hold of your elders, sit with them, ask for stories, what it was to survive the Depression, where they were when the war ended. Did they hear it on the radio, or were they telephoned on a party line? When did they get a car? Where did they go for that first ride? How was it in the era of technology, in their era of technology firsts? Why? Well, because in remembering their era of time, you will be surprised how current their hardships and achievements were in the when of today. They grew up needing to change with the times, adapt, or lose. Why not live the history from their stories? Learn about and remember those who are gone with those who are here, who were there before they too are gone. They were, well, are, the greatest generation after all. On behalf of the Laurel Volunteer Rescue Squad officers and membership, we wish you a most memorable day.
Thank you, Michelle. There's a verse in the Bible where it says, he who goes last becomes first. Most important speaker I introduced today is the reason this day even exists. I thought it'd be appropriate to read the words of Maya Angelou, who said specifically about this particular holiday, how important it is for us to recognize and celebrate our heroes and our she-heroes. And I say that because the leader of our American Legion for many years is one of those such heroes. And we are very fortunate throughout this town that we have many, many heroes in these organizations who risk their lives every day. But on this day, to where we celebrate those that gave the ultimate sacrifice in their military service, it gives me then great pleasure to introduce their representative today, who is a person I have a great deal of respect for, and so happy she's here to speak those words. Commander Lee Ruby. Commander.
Thank you so much. That's a lot to live up to. Thank you. For the second year in a row, Memorial Day looks a little different than it has in the past. In many cases, our backyard barbecues and get-togethers are replaced by video chats and other marvels of modern technology. Still, we hold on to some semblance of what life was and what we know it will return to. And the memories and emotions of this day brings are always the same. For countless families across the nation, Memorial Day is a stark and often painful reminder of those who were never afforded the opportunity to be honored as veterans who served their country. Their sacrifice is a true expression of selfless service, one that no one would pick for themselves. Whether they volunteered at time of war, served during peacetime, or never expected to wear our nation's uniform until their draft card arrived, they represent the best America has to offer. We feel their loss roaming the sacred hills of Arlington National Cemetery and in other final resting places around the world. Too many mothers, fathers, siblings, and children feel the immense weight of seeing an empty chair all year round. For them, Memorial Day brings to the forefront what is always operating in the background. Sending off a loved one to serve in the battle is a surreal experience. I suspect conflicting emotions of fear and pride are present in the minds of both the service members and their families. Like any other send-off, you hold them tight, tell them you love them, and watch them head out until they're no longer in sight. But what makes sending a loved one off to war very different is the all too real possibility that a uniformed military officer and chaplain may show up at your doorstep to deliver devastating news. This will be the 20th year we've been at war, longer than any American conflict that came before. About 2.7 million Americans have served in Iraq and Afghanistan, and over half of them deployed more than once. Those who returned are now our community members, neighbors, and friends. I'm confident if you take the time to learn about any veteran where you live, you'll be amazed by the stories of service and sacrifice, known only to those who have witnessed it firsthand. Then there are the unbelievably brave accounts of heroes who can no longer speak for themselves. It's up to us to not only tell their stories, but to honor their service and memory by ensuring their families and survivors are cared for. We can wear the poppy. We can place flags and wreaths at their graves. We can donate to charities that provide for the families. And we can look at their surviving brothers and sisters in arms and say thank you for your service. Our organization, the American Legion, recognizes that when rounds are coming your way, there's no such thing as, quote, a small war. More than 1,600 Americans have lost their lives fighting in covert operations and Cold War battles that occurred between the designated war period since the attack on Pearl Harbor. For 100 years, the preamble of the Constitution of the American Legion stated our commitment to preserve the memories and incidents of our associations in the Great War, and later, the Great Wars. This wording has a natural outcome for an organization that was founded by World War I veterans and succeeded by equally committed World War II veterans. In 2019, we changed our preamble and expanded our publicly stated commitment. We now promise to preserve the memories and incidents and associations in all wars. The harsh reality of war and military service in general is that not everyone will always make it home. Let us honor the memory of heroes no longer with us, and let us strive to live up to the example set by such selfless patriots every day. Thank you.
Now, following our agenda today, I'm going to ask the audience to please stand. We're going to have a singing of God Bless America. We're going to have the ringing of the bells, a tradition of the fire departments around the world. And last but not least, the playing of taps. And then I would ask you to sit back down for the benediction and the closing remarks today. But let me introduce to you a very lovely young lady by the name of Kenya Barno. Kenya will start it off by singing God Bless America.
God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountain to the prairies, to the oceans wide with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home.
If I can ask Jason to come forward. Please be seated. Again, I bring up to the podium our good friend, our chaplain at the Laurel Volunteer Fire Department, Jim Collins. Jimmy.
Before I give the closing prayer, I would like to say a few things. Yeah, and I guarantee you my closing prayer will not be long, so just bear with me. Yeah. That was good. Also, before I give the prayer, I would like to pay tribute to one of our members who was killed in combat in April of 1968. It's Corporal Francis Gray. He actually talked me into joining the Laurel Volunteer Fire Department when I was a young kid. And I joined in 72, but it wasn't until I looked at the Laurel leader that I noticed that he was killed in action. And that has bothered me ever since then. And my tour in Vietnam, all I could think of was frankly, just what's happened to him. Also, as chaplain, I do get to say things that, because I'm the last one to talk, right? I'd also like to pay tribute to one of the former members of the Laurel Volunteer Fire Department. His son, as you may know, was killed in the line of duty. Gino Mills, Corporal United States Marine Corps. We remember him, my wife and I remember him coming to our house trick-or-treat night and dressed in a county police uniform. And he is probably every bit of 3 foot tall, maybe, if that. But he is truly missed. And then the other thing I want to do, when I was going to ask to be chaplain, I became an ordained minister, and it changed my ways a lot. And I remember somebody asked me, said, they can't believe that Jimmy Collins is a chaplain. Well, neither could I. But you learn to change your ways. And when I had 7 members of my family die within a couple of years, one being my grandson, it changed my life. But also, I want to pay tribute to the son of the ex-chief of police, Roy Gilmore, his son Sean, who passed away just a few weeks ago, unexpectedly. And he's gone that quick. And once you know, I mean, we're here, the police, the fire department, rescue squad, the American Legion, the City of Laurel, we're also human. And we lose family members and friends. It hurts us. It does. But we must carry on in the tradition. The other thing I want to do, on a lighter note, is Halbert Litchfield, Warren Litchfield, who was chaplain for many years. And if you have the program, you'll be able to see his picture at the bottom. I remember, and I told this last year, that we went to a church, and I was either president of the Laurel Fire Department or the county. I couldn't remember, but he was going to a church in Howard County to become a minister. And the air conditioner was broke. And I said, man, it's hot in here. And he said, that's just a sample of what you're going to get if you don't change your ways. So I changed my ways. And then I want to thank each and every one of you for coming today. It means a lot. And we never forget those members who are laid up in the cemeteries and the work they did, the sacrifices they've done. And they'll never be forgotten. The book I have in front of me is a book of worship, and that was given to me by the son of Warren Litchfield, David. And it's been very helpful to me, trying to change my ways in life. But I'd like to do as a closing prayer. So please join me in the prayer. Grant, O Lord, that what we have said with our lips, we may believe in our hearts. And what we believe in our hearts, we may practice in our lives. Through Jesus Christ, our Lord. Amen.
So I've always been, at the end, it does clean up and bats last. And so I would like to say to all, thank you very much for being here today. It is a very special holiday. It is a very special holiday that affects so many families. And I usually talk about the fact that a week ago, this holiday was addressed talking about how much traffic we were going to have. And then it followed to what the weather would be like. And it isn't until almost today where the articles start to come out about the true meaning of this day. One of the truest meanings is an unknown quote that says, "Our flag does not fly because the wind moves it. It flies with the last breath of each soldier who died protecting it." Freedom is not free. We have to remember. So I always close for the rules of the rest of the day, except I'd like some of these to last for the rest of everyone's lifetime. As our chaplain rightfully said, we are nothing but human beings, all of us. You can label us if you'd like, but there's none of us, we're nothing but human beings. And we have faults, and we have a lot of them. And no matter what those faults are, every day should be a day to strive to the next level of making something different. So today, I want you to think about, learn from yesterday, love for today, and the important thing in the hope for tomorrow is we never stop questioning. Albert Einstein said, "The day you stop learning is the day you start dying." And the truth is, we have so much to learn, and yet we have to learn from each other. If we don't respect and give each other the time of day, then it's pretty hard to learn. And if you did stop learning, as the man said, you've started to die. Today is a day to live and remember and to love. And so while you're out there today, if you see a person in a uniform, any uniform, I don't care if it's a uniform of a commercial establishment you walk in today. Better off, why don't everybody you see today as a human being and just say thank you? You don't know them, that's fine. Say it anyway. There's probably a very good reason you should thank them. They're alive, they're living amongst us, and we should appreciate every one of them. This holiday is about remembering. It's also a time that if we haven't learned anything in these past several months, you see what an enemy COVID was, but you can't see the enemy. There are no enemies unless you want to make them one. And remember, and I believe this ever since my 2 grandchildren were born, we teach hate. No one is ever born with it. So today, we're all on equal footing. Tomorrow, we'll still be on equal footing. Thank them. Be safe. Have a great day. And if you live in Laurel and you look out the doors when we leave here and it's still cloudy and raining, not in Laurel, sun always shines. Have a great day.